What is up, guys? Tommy from SoFlo Jeeping here. So last week I gave you guys a video about 10 things I didn't really like about the Jeep Wrangler. So now I'm going to do the obvious thing and, you know, give a little credit back to Jeep. I'm going to do 10 things I really liked about my Jeep JK, and things that you could tell Jeep kind of thought through. Some may have been accidental, and just things that overall I was kind of impressed with. Now, I know many people have done these videos, so I'm going to try to do stuff that kind of pertain to those who are actually building wheelers and those who are actually going to wheel their Jeeps. Not just the, oh, I like how the seats feel. Nobody likes how the seats feel in these things, but you get the idea. Things that will pertain to people who want to build their Jeeps, because most of the just want to highway and, you know, go to the beach crowd has moved on to the jail. So 10 things I really liked about JK that mostly pertain to building a wheeler. So the first thing is actual, like, good transfer case options from the factory. The Rubicons, we got a 4-to-1 transfer case, which for a factory vehicle to have a 4-to-1 transfer case is absolutely awesome. A lot of the times when I get in like other like normal pickup trucks or SUVs and I put them in 4 low, I'm like, this is all I'm getting. Like, this doesn't feel a whole lot different than 4 high. But the Rubicons get the 4-to-1. Even the Sports and Sahara's get a 2.7 1-to-1, which is still absolutely respectable. I really, really enjoy having that low range, especially having a 6-speed, and rock garden, just being able to not just be incredibly rough on my clutch and actually be able to feel like the Jeep is made for what I'm trying to do with it. It's absolutely incredible. Props to Jeep for actually putting a real transfer case in these. So next thing is just how easy it is to make these vehicles incredibly capable. To sort of go to like a real capable build, the older Jeeps, you'd really have to do a lot of fabrication. You have to do a big build. The JKs, I mean, I own a 2-door, but especially the JKUs, you can build a super capable rig on 1-tons and 40s and coilovers that can wheel just about any trail in the country without touching a welder. Now, whether you want to do it that way, there's a little things you might want to do different, but you can do bolt-in crate axles, bolt-on long arm kit, bolt-on, even a mid-arm kit, because even the arms on the JK are longer than previous Jeeps, so even the mid-arms aren't the worst thing in the world. Bolt-on long arm, or bolt-on coilover kit, and all armor. You can do all that without touching a welder. So the fact that you can build a super capable rock crawler on tons and 40s and coilovers without touching a welder is just mind-blowing, that a manufacturer thought about a vehicle in production enough to make it that easy to be modified, and how creative the aftermarket has gotten with the Jeep Wranglers to make everything as easy as possible for us. So next thing I'm going to go into is more for Rubicon, but it still kind of applies to the Sport and Saharas. So the Rubicon's got front and rear lockers. I absolutely loved having those. Right now, I mean, obviously now I'm on bigger axles, I've ditched those, but I did have the Rubicon axles for a long time. I had the factory lockers, and it was just so amazing having something that you can just turnkey. Like my first setup, I just threw on a bolt-on 3.5-inch lift in 37s, and just to be able to have a locked rig on 37s that easily, such a capable setup, was just awesome. I love the fact that Jeep actually put front and rear lockers in this from the factory. And even the Sport and Saharas, the limited slip that they have from the factory, I've been pretty impressed with what people can do, you know, playing with the brake a little bit to, you know, kind of trick the differential. I've been impressed with what non-lock Jeeps can get through sometimes. But yeah, I absolutely love that they came from the factory with lockers. And even if you didn't get the lockers, you still didn't get forgotten about completely. You still have pretty decent setup. So the next thing is kind of a pro, kind of a con. I'd say it's kind of a pro if you've got a 2-door and you want to stretch it, kind of a con if you got a 4-door and you really don't care about what's behind the axle. So like the TJs, like the previous Jeeps, a lot of the time had the fuel tank behind the axle. The JKs, they had the fuel tank. The JKs have the fuel tank in front of the axle. So I say pro and a con, because the pro is it's so much easier to stretch 2-door JKs than it was TJs. You just do pretty much a long arm kit with some offset coil perches, and you can stretch a JK and still keep all your evap intact, keep your fuel tank, not mess with any of that, and sub $4 grand you can stretch a JK. So me being a 2-door, I love the fact that the fuel tank is in front of the axle. I did 3-link, 6-inch stretch, long arm, and just absolutely changed the way this Jeep wheeled. And it was not really hard nor incredibly costly to do. Now, I say it can be a con, because the downside is, especially like for 4-door people who really don't care if they have the axle back there because they've already got enough wheelbase, or not the axle, the fuel tank back there because they've already got enough wheelbase, is having the fuel tank in front of the axle stops you from being able to run a triangulated 4-link. Now, for those who don't know, triangulated 4-link is pretty much, you have 4 links and at least 2 of the arms are, well, triangulated. I can put a diagram somewhere up here of a triangulated 4-link, but the nice thing is you can ditch your track bar. So that's one less place where it can bind, and all in all, it just makes the travel a lot better. So to do a triangulated 4-link, you'd have to do a fuel cell. But if you're, like in the previous Jeeps that had the fuel tank behind the axle, if you're doing triangulation, you're doing a stretch, and you're doing a fuel cell anyways. So it's not the end of the world. I'd much rather be able to have that easy stretch. The 3-link isn't the worst system in the world. Obviously, a 4-link without a track bar would be better. But I think the ease of being able to stretch the 2-door JKs makes that fuel tank being up there really worth it. And it's also really nice and tucked up out of the way instead of being out in the back where you can get bashed into stuff. Now, the next thing I'm going to come out of the Jeep for, I just got back from Jeep with Judge, so the Jeep's not exactly clean, but just how easy of a body this is to trim to make room for stuff. So like I said, I did a 6-inch stretch and I'm on 40. So I moved this axle 6 inches back and I put massive tires. And I was able to cut all this out and I really didn't have to interfere with anything. Just the wheel wells on these things are so massive. It is so easy to trim for bigger tires. Like, you have, yeah, especially in the rear with the stretch, it's just, there's like a panel here, but you cut that out. All this is just free space. You don't have to get into your interior at all. You don't have to build new fender wells. Again, up front, you swap out your fenders and you have so much room to play with. All in all, the body, they just designed the body for it to be so easy to be able to make small modifications to run bigger tires and stretches, etc. So the next thing I love about the Jeep JK, and I'm so insanely happy that Jeep is finally going to offer it on the JL, is the fact that you can get half doors from the factory. So for those of you who don't know JKs or aren't familiar with them, so half doors pretty much mean that it's kind of half a door and the top half is cloth. So normally the full doors, it's just metal up to here, and then here's your window, and it's pretty much just like a normal car door. But the half doors, you can take off the upper, and you've got just a super small door that's really light if you want to take off your doors, and really out of the way if you're trying to get a look at your tire. And the fact that these are factory, everything is nice and OEM, from the door handle to the lock to the panels. It's just super cool that Jeep did that, and they actually made it a pretty common thing on the JKs where you could just spec out a Jeep with factory half doors. So, staying with the doors, another thing I love about the JK is just how modular everything is. You can take off the roof. I mean, this is pretty normal Jeep stuff, everyone knows that, but one thing that people don't really consider, which I learned the hard way, is one really nice thing about being able to easily remove doors. So I've got my half doors here with locks and stuff. I daily them. I took them to Windrock and I beat the crap out of them. I scratched them, I dented them, I pushed it in. And for those of you who know how rare the Mopar half doors are, that kind of sucked. Next time I go up there, got just some $100 cloth doors. In 30 seconds, I can change them out. And it's pretty great that in 30 seconds, you can literally change your door to something you don't have to worry about getting damaged. So, another nice thing the Jeep gave us the ability to do. Now, staying on the side of the Jeep and pointing out things here, another thing I love about the Jeep JKs is factory rock sliders. To me, it's just absolutely awesome that a brand will sell a vehicle with rock sliders from the factory. Granted, they're not frame mounted, but even these Rubicon Ruby sliders that are tub mounted, they have taken a beating. I've bashed that slider into things at Windrock, Hard Rock, bunch of things around here, and they've taken an absolute beating, and I've been pretty impressed with how they have held up for being a body mounted rock slider and a rock slider that was given from the factory that came stock on this thing. So yeah, pretty cool that Jeep offered a rock slider from the factory, knowing what some owners are going to do with these Jeeps. So the next thing I absolutely love about the Jeep JK/JKU platform is just how stable they are when you're wheeling. As long as you don't go ridiculous and do 6s into lift and 35s on a stock wheelbase 2-door, they are actually super stable rigs. I'll throw up some pics here of me being off camber, but between the extra width and the extra length, even if you don't stretch it, they're, I want to say 4 inches of wheelbase more than you'd get with a TJ. I could be wrong, but even, and then again, like I said with the fuel tank, stretching the 2 doors isn't hard. The 4 doors are plenty long, but they're super stable rigs. Whenever I wheel in XJs, older, shorter Wranglers, Land Cruisers, it's kind of scary getting through the off-camber stuff. It's really nice to be back in the JK when I'm in off-camber stuff, just because, especially like side-to-side stuff, I'm amazed by how stable this thing feels. I rarely feel like I'm about to tip, or I'm about to flop, or I'm about to do something stupid. It really gives a lot of confidence having the stability that the longer, wider, more modern Jeeps have. Granted, they're a bigger body, so they can get a little bit in the way of more stuff, but I'll take it. It's, yeah, overall, super stable for what they are, being a body-on-frame rig and not purpose-built. Like, even when I had 37s and stock wheelbase, I still was able to do a ton of stuff, ton of off-camber stuff, and it didn't bother me at all. And then when I stretched it, I don't even think about it anymore. I just point and shoot without having to worry about flopping this thing for the most part. And yeah, I've been super happy with just how stable this is on the rocks. Now, the last thing is just how easy these rigs are to work on. Let's say you break something out on the trail, or just go through an alternator or something. Overall, compared to most other vehicles, like, keep in mind the JK was made in 2018. That was just, see, this video is 2021, 3 years ago. And they are incredibly easy to work on. Alternator, take you 20 minutes, just pop off the air intake, change your alternator, and you're back on the road. Everything is like either a 13 mil, an 18 mil, or Torx. Everything is super accessible, super easy to reach, super easy to work on. If there's stuff on top, that stuff is usually pretty easy to remove. Drivetrain, all of it super easy to get to. All the bolts are super accessible. Overall, there's been very few moments where I've been working on this Jeep and I just think, why could they possibly think this was a good idea? Overall, super easy rig to work on, much easier than other vehicles I've worked on. Now, keep in mind, I'm no mechanic. I'm someone who likes to work on their own vehicle. But overall, yeah, I've been super happy with how easy this thing is to work on. So yeah, that's 10 things that I really like about my Jeep JK that are kind of unconventional things that the other, you know, typical 10 things videos won't tell you. Like I said in the last video, overall, I've been super happy with the ownership experience of this JK. No plans to get rid of it soon. Only thing I would do is buy a tow rig so I can stop dealing it and make it more capable. But no plans of getting rid of the JK. I love this thing. It's been a fantastic build, and many more plans ahead. If you want to like the video, like the video. If you want to comment on the video, tell me something, go ahead, comment on the video. I'll respond as quick as I can. If you want to subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll try to keep up with sort of this more consistent trend of videos that I have been keeping up with the last few months, instead of previously where I'd go 4 months without making a video. But yeah, see you guys on the next video.